All right, episode 18 of Backbreakers and Bites. We're here with Jim Alers. This dude has done everything. We're going to get into all that. But Jim, where are we and why did you pick this place?
All right, so we're at one of my students' pizza restaurant. It's called Coley's. And to me, it's way different than your average pizza. They have a lot of signature toppings, different things. And to me, I was like, if I'm going to pick a restaurant, it's definitely going to be one of my students. I want to help. I want to support them. That's the kind of community that I kind of build at my gym. Just, hey, let's help build each other up as much as we can.
That's the right
awesome,
way to do
man.
it.
Definitely like the Ninja Turtles theme in here.
I love it. Yeah, good retro style stuff.
And it's mind you, it's 12 p.m. and I've already seen like 100 people come in and out of here. So
you're a Turtle fan? A Ninja Turtle fan or not really?
I grew up watching Ninja Turtles, definitely, for sure.
So Jim, you've done UFC, you've done Jiu-Jitsu. Did you go to any Abu Dhabis?
No, I haven't been to an Abu Dhabi.
Oh,
No, I've done mostly like the IBJJF stuff. I just came from Worlds in December for IBJJF. I'm going to do the ADCC trial. I'm in the ADCC Orlando Open, July 6th.
All right.
So I'm going to make my debut in the ADCC World.
Nice, dude. All right, looking forward to that. He's also done Bare Knuckle.
Yep.
Did you have the belt or you almost had the belt?
I fought for the belt.
Okay.
Didn't go too well.
So he was one of the OGs in damn near everything. So Jim, where did it all start, man? Where did your interest in all this stuff start?
Man, so what's crazy is that I've been fighting pretty much, obviously, my whole life. Everyone has that. Yeah, I've been fighting since I was a kid. But a lot of my fighting happened, I mean, we're the same age, like we talked about earlier, was Kimbo Slice was the guy who was just blowing up with this backyard fighting stuff.
Yeah.
And so me and my friends from the wrestling team, we were like, let's start doing our own backyard fights. Let's film it. Let's challenge people from the football team and this and that. So we started doing that. We started just fighting each other, and we were fighting each other bare knuckle, filming it on.
They're good friends.
Yeah, we had it. What was it, like little VHS ones with the CD, like
with
old
the mini
school.
tapes.
I wish we could find those, but we were just doing it in the front of people's yards, the back of people's yards, invite everybody, and then we started challenging other sports, and it was just all for fun, like no hate against each other. We're like, hey, we're just trying to see who's the better fighter here. Let's film it. Let's just do it. We were pretty bored, I guess, after wrestling season. I started fighting a lot like that first.
Out of the group of friends that you had, who was the best fighter back then?
Man, I think we had a lot of different styles, but I was just kind of aggressive always, I was probably in our wrestling team, I was one of the top guys, especially during that time. So I always felt like, man, if I can't punch this guy, at least I know I'm going to take him down and I'll be comfortable there. So that was always like a choice of mine was, man, if this guy's a better puncher than me, I'm gonna try to take him down. And it kind of went into my MMA career that way as well.
Damn, dude. And you probably had no striking at that time either, right?
Oh, man, just whatever. I was probably just swinging for defense. Man, my first couple MMA fights, I would say, I didn't have the best striking as well either.
Did you ever cross paths with Kimbo?
Yeah, so what was cool was I started training at American Top Team when I was in the UFC, and I'm like, holy shit.
So that was that same time, right? That was probably when he was on the Ultimate Fighter and all that.
He was already now in the UFC, and I'm like, holy shit, it's fucking Kimbo Slice. And I'm like, I watched all his YouTube videos.
You were a fan of him.
I was a fan, man. I watched all his fights. I remember when he lost to Gunnar Nelson, I think his name was, and I was like, oh my,
Roy Nelson.
Seth.
No, this is UFC.
He lost
Roy Nelson.
No, this was before he lost a bare knuckle fight to a guy who was fighting. I forgot the guy's name.
Shit.
If it's Gunnar Nelson, I'll lose my mind.
Yeah,
dude.
if you watch it, like Kimbo's only lost in street fighting. And they're in like this basement, it looks like. And I remember
I know what you're talking about.
The cop. Yeah, so he was a fighter as well at the time.
Dude?
I can't remember.
But they were like back and forth for like
they were back and forth, but then Kimbo gassed out.
He
gassed out, and then I remember that. So I was like,
that doesn't really count.
They were like, hey, no takedowns.
They tried to pick him up and shit.
It was crazy. And I remember seeing him, and I'm like, man, I'm such a fan still of fighters in general. When I was in the UFC, I'm taking pictures with everybody still.
That's awesome.
Like, I love that I was like, got to share the same room with some of these guys. And so I took the picture with Kimbo, told him, man, this is crazy to meet you. One of the reasons like I started like fighting in general.
Oh, wow.
Legitimately too.
And
it's crazy.
So it was cool to see him there. And then in Bare Knuckle, I would always say like, man, he's the one who started this off, and it would be awesome to see if he would have been able to come and do this as well.
Yeah, it does suck, man. Like, it's finally taken off.
Yeah. Maybe he came back in like Mike Perry though.
He is 1% black.
Yeah.
So, dude, was your first gym Gracie Baja Orlando as far as MMA, or did you do something before that?
No, yeah. So after high school, I moved up to Orlando, stopped wrestling for like 6 months or so. And so I just kind of missed competition, I would say. I'm like, man, I missed that drive that wrestling gave me. So look up wrestling. I don't even know what I looked up, but I ended up finding that there was a Gracie Baja close by. And it was like literally the only school around there back in 2005.
Yeah.
And so it was downtown. I lived by the college. So it was like a 25-minute drive or something like that. I walk in, I see all of them in their pajamas. And I was just like, man, it looks like wrestling. You know, I'm going to do it. And so walked in, and pretty much like that changed the course of my life, honestly, to make it, my whole life became about jiu-jitsu and kickboxing and MMA in general after that.
It's a beautiful life, man. When you got there, I mean, you were already there when I got there, but were you there with Seth there too, and Ben
so
Saunders and all those
guys? I
guys?
tell people this story all the time. Like, when I got there, it was still the only gym there.
Yeah.
And I remember like watching MMA, the guys doing MMA, and I'm like, oh, I want to do that. And they were like, oh no, you got to be a blue belt to do MMA.
That's the classic.
And I was like, damn, you know.
They won't even give you your blue belt with your experience?
No, I got it pretty fast. I got it like in under a year, but still, I wanted to get in there with these guys. And I'm watching them, and I remember seeing Seth Petrozelli, Paul Rodriguez, a bunch of these guys that all have gyms in Orlando now, but all training under the same roof there. And then I guess gym politics came into play. And I think the first people to leave and start their own gym was the ATT guys. They started an ATT. And then from there, they branched out and made the Jungle. And then just constantly more and more and more gyms started opening up in Orlando. But pretty much I remember sitting there and watching all these guys and just being like, man, I want to jump in on that as soon as I can.
Man, and then Seth goes on to knock out Kimbo with the jab.
Yeah,
like,
crazy. It's crazy. It was awesome just watching these guys. I remember watching Luigi
Fioravante.
On the Ultimate Fighter, and be like, yo, this guy trains with me. Like, it was just amazing to me.
And dude,
to watch that.
Were you one of the extras and never back down?
No, man. Corey, Remington, all those guys got to do it. I moved back down to South Florida for a year. So I trained for 2 years up there. I got my blue belt. And then I moved to South Florida for a year. And I started training with Pablo Popovich and Wagner Rocha.
Dude, I almost forgot about Popovich, man. Yeah. More politics.
Yeah, more politics, yeah. And branched out to only training with Wagner. And so I trained with Wagner for about a year, maybe a little bit more. He gave me my purple belt. And then I moved back to Orlando and started again at Gracie Baja. So I've had a lot of different coaches throughout my career. And
good coaches, man.
Yeah, good coaches. Yeah, I left Gracie Baja mostly because they've stopped doing MMA mostly. I would say there was some other stuff, but I would say like the biggest thing was they kind of stopped doing MMA. And I was like, when I moved back to Orlando, I started doing MMA. My first fight was in 2008.
Yeah.
And it was all these Gracie Baja guys on the card. It was at UCF. And I was like, man, I can fight at my own college. That'd be fucking awesome. And so they offered me a fight. It was $500, $300 to fight, $200 to win.
Wow. And
I was in college, and I'm like, man, I train every single day anyways. What the hell? Hell yeah, I'll do it. I fought for free many times in my life. And so ended up fighting this guy who had like 3 amateur fights. I remember my wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, looks him up. She's like, I don't know, this guy's so experienced. And blah,
3
blah,
fights
blah.
is experience.
You know, he had all these cool pictures and everything. And I'm just like, man, well, you know, whatever. I'm training anyways. Let me do it. I ended up beating him like a minute and a half of a triangle. But it was just crazy. Like, my cage awareness was not there. I would take him down. I could have finished the fight probably in like 20 seconds. But I would take him down. I would take him down by the cage. He'd walk up the cage, flip me over. I'd get out. Boom. I'd take him down again. It was just bad cage awareness on my play, but end up triangling him. got the $500, and I was like,
We're rich.
Gotta do this again.
hell yeah, you know? And they were like, hey, if you want to do it again, we have another one in 3 months here.
Damn.
And they're like, we'll give you $800. And I was like, sure, of course. So ended up doing that. Those were crazy. They were both for Cage Warriors USA,
Right.
which I ended up fighting again later on in my career, but in Europe.
And people need to know that you were crazy to do that also, because if you had any aspirations, there was only pro in Florida.
Exactly. Yeah, there was only pro in Florida. If you wanted to do amateur,
Appreciate
you
it.
had to go out of the state. And I was like, man, I don't want to do that. I'm not going out of the state. I'm just going to go straight pro. And I was a purple belt at the time.
Yeah.
So I was like, shoot, I'm going to do it. I was training MMA, just MMA, probably for like
Thank you so much.
6 months, maybe less than that, before I had my first fight.
And so you said you did another fight. You were still, like, dude, I lost track of you for a minute there. But
So I
like,
was still in like this is like in 2008. So my first fight was with Gracie Baja. My second fight, my first few fights were all with Gracie Baja.
right.
And so again, it was at UCF Arena, and it was against a guy who was in a fraternity. And I remember, so the Gracie Baja crew, we were really tight back then. Again, we were like really, there was only like 1 or 2 schools now by this time. And so the guy had a fraternity, all the Gracie Baja guys were out there.
I think I heard this.
After the fight, I'm still young, and you know, and the guy actually came up to me a few days before the fight. We were at this bar called Scoop, I think, if you remember that bar. And he comes up to me with his friend, and I'm just sitting there with like my wife, who was my girlfriend again at the time, and a couple people. And he like tries to like mean mug me. He comes and starts punching himself in the face. He's like, yeah, we're gonna see who's gonna do. And I just like
What an idiot.
put my hand behind my back, and I'm like, okay, man, yeah, we'll see. And so after the fight, I rear naked choke him. I get up, I push his head down, I go to the crowd, and I just flick off the crowd.
Oh,
and
shit.
all of a sudden, like, everybody just like starts fighting in the stand, and I'm like, whatever, you know. A few people got kicked out and stuff, but that was a stupid part of me, I would say, you know, kind of doing that and playing to the fans
Yeah.
more. After that, I kind of went more the respectable route on my career.
Wasn't there a story where you was it with another fraternity that you fought some guy and then they came to jump you, and then yeah.
Man, no, I don't. I hope not. I don't think so. Not in that one. But in that one, I remember there was just like fight in the stands, and then that was really much the end of it for that one. I never heard of that guy again.
Dude, that was like so the culture back then, though. Like, MMA is super respectable now, and like you do occasionally get the Nate and Nick Diaz's
Yeah,
that
of
start
course,
shit,
yeah.
but like back then it used to be like that, man.
Yeah, it was a lot just like gang wars almost. Sometimes.
Especially like you said, there was only like 1 or 2 schools. So if you're fighting the other school, it's
Right. He was from ATT. That was the other school
Yeah.
too. That was also at the time they had branched off of Gracie Baja,
Yeah.
and so it was Gracie Baja and ATT back then.
yeah, that shit was crazy, man.
Yeah.
So was your next step to go over to England and fight in Cage Warriors over there? Or?
So I fought a lot of times in these regional shows in Florida up until like I was 6-1 or something like that. I had one loss, which we should go back to, which was crazy. I was 4-0. I was fighting this guy who was like, I don't know, maybe he was like 2-1 or something like that. Not as good of a record. I went into it like just cocky as shit. Like I was already saying I was 5-0, blah blah blah. And I go in and I had just knocked out somebody for the first time. Just rare knockout. I wasn't expecting. He threw a kick, I threw a cross, just completely knocked him out. So I got
Nice.
confident in my hands. And I think I got TKO'd in about 23 seconds in this fight. We touch hands. As soon as we start swinging, he just boom, rocks me. And I get hit about 30 times. I'm still fighting back. I'm like wrestling. I don't remember any of it. You know, and he just boom, swinging. Eventually the referee stops it. We're both standing. People are like, man, he stopped it too early. You were standing. And I'm like, guys,
I don't know where I'm
I
at.
don't remember anything. You know, I'm glad that referee stopped it. It was a good stoppage.
Yeah, for sure.
And for so long, I wanted that fight back. But, you know, I took another. He's like, hey, get a win, whatever. I took another fight. I win. He's not winning. He's not doing the same
so
thing.
it's just-
And then it took me a while to be like, I'm past that, you know? And so I think I became 6-1, and then I started fighting overseas for Cage Warriors. And if there's anything that I could say I wanted out of fighting, was to travel the world on someone else's dime.
Yeah.
And so my first overseas fight was in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And I was like, oh, this is crazy. I'm going to go to the Middle East and fight. What a crazy culture shock. I want to see.
Really?
I'd love to do this. And so I went over. I fought some guy from, I don't know what country he was from either. But ended up winning. I won by, I was in crucifix and I was elbowing him.
Oh, old school, dude.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was my first TKO fight win. And after that, they were like, we want to sign you to a 5-fight contract. And I was like, all right, but we put a clause that if the UFC called, that I was able to get out of the contract.
Oh, that's awesome, dude.
Yeah, so now I'm 7-1. I had just fought this one guy. Now they're like, we want you to fight Conor McGregor next fight.
That was after the Bahrain fight?
After the Bahrain fight.
Was he the champ or
we
no?
want you to fight Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor had just won the belt.
Oh, man.
And the guy that I just fought, he was supposed to be a contender for the belt. I beat him. Now they're like, hey, we want you to fight Conor. I don't know Conor who he is. At the time, he had legit had maybe 2,000 Twitter followers.
Yep.
And so he's the same Conor McGregor you see now.
Yep. I never forget the promo, dude. He's like, yeah, I'll fight the Yank.
We're beefing back and forth on Twitter. I'm just not a shit talker in that way or anything. So like, I'm just like the things he says, I'm like cracking up sometimes at it. I'm like, man, he's good. He's funny, you know? And so we're going back and forth. And it's fight week. He pulls out of the fight. So I know there's a lot of talk that Conor said he never pulled out of a fight. He pulled out of that fight.
That wasn't because he got in the UFC.
He broke his orbital. Apparently,
man.
The week of the fight. And so ends up pulling out. They're like, do you still want to fight? I'm like, yeah, man, I trained for this fight. Why not? They give me some black belt from Brazil. And I was a purple belt at the time. End up submitting him with a Darce. And after the fight, I'm just calling out Conor. I'm like, let's go, blah, 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 blah. They reschedule the fight. I pull out of the fight, hurt my hand.
Man.
But at least I give him like 6 weeks at least.
Yeah.
You know? I pull out of the fight. He ends up fighting for the 155 belt at Cage Warriors. Wins that, goes to the UFC. Now the 145 title is vacant. I fight for it. I end up winning. I have to defend it 2 more times before I go to the UFC.
Damn, dude.
So I was like 12-1 when I got to the UFC. I would say it was because most of my fights were submissions. You see guys getting to the UFC 5-0,
Yep.
all knockouts. They're in the UFC.
Right.
I was 13-1 with 11 submissions and 1 TKO, and only 1 decision.
But that's super impressive in itself, dude. Who's like all submissions? That's like Damian Maya level shit.
Yeah, but people want to see knockouts. I believe,
of course.
But I get the call, and I'm just like, I remember I had a regular job working at a behavioral hospital.
Oh shit.
And so I'm dealing with people who are just pretty much insane, a lot of times. And I would work 12-hour shifts.
Oh my God.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Because if you worked the weekends, they gave you an extra $1. If you worked night, they gave you an extra $1. And I was also teaching Jiu-Jitsu at my school at the time. So I'm just hustling, just trying to make ends meet and fight at the same time. Even while I was fighting in Cage Warriors, I was only getting paid like $2,500 a fight. With sponsors, I was probably making like $5,000 a fight. So I had to.
And that was as champ?
That was as a champion.
Yo,
That was as a champion.
times have changed,
and
man.
defending at multiple times. And so I was like, still working. I remember I got the call from my manager, and he's like, hey, check your email. And I'm driving to work 6 a.m. And it was from Joe Silva at the time. And he's like, hey, do you want to fight in Abu Dhabi? April 16th, I believe, something like that.
Obviously, that was a no-brainer. You're like, yeah, of course.
And I was like, I don't even need to read the contract. Hell yeah, I don't care.
Just sign it.
I don't care. I pull over, I start crying. You know?
Dude, I don't blame
I mean,
you.
I can't believe it's happening. And you know, that was just something so hard that I worked for. And I was like, I can't believe this actually happened. So many people, you're not gonna make it, blah blah blah. One in whatever people make it, this, that. And you know, at the time, most of the people that I knew were getting signed to the UFC only by going through the Ultimate Fighter.
Right.
Everybody that from Orlando, most of the time that I knew, like Seth Petrozelli went to the Ultimate Fighter, Ben Saunders went to the Ultimate Fighter.
Yep.
Most of the guys went to the Ultimate Fighter. So I was like, oh my God, I got in without having to go through the Ultimate Fighter, even though I tried 2 times. And,
They wouldn't take you on the Ultimate Fighter?
Man, I got super close one time. I made it to like the final 50.
Oh, did you?
They called me back to Vegas, this, that. And
Did you have to fight at all?
I didn't get to fight.
Oh, damn.
At the final 50, they did like a final, what is it called? Like when they talk to you, interview, I guess, you know? And I got cut after that one.
They probably want you to be more like crazy,
I was just,
right?
yeah, I was not a crazy person, I would say, you know? So.
Dude, speaking of fellow Ultimate Fighter alum Julian Lane.
Oh yeah.
But you later end up fighting. That's a crazy motherfucker right there.
That's a crazy one.
That's
too,
what
yeah.
they wanted.
that was fun.
But so I know you came back. Dude, feel free to eat too.
No, yeah.
We have such a bad habit. We should all be.
I thought they were gonna make you one.
Making you on a pop.
Yeah, no.
I saw this.
I didn't see that.
The best kind.
Did you want to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Dude, I'm so bad at this.
No,
We
it's
should have
just-
sat you here. I'm like the #1 worst person. You're just gonna get my hands all over it.
Food break.
Oh wait, I'm supposed to get a shot of you biting it.
You can redo it.
To do the other one, that's
Dude,
gonna
actually, let's do this. Now that I got 2 cameras and one of them's like super slow mo.
Did you go back and edit everything up and stuff?
Yeah, a little bit, but most of the time we just go full raw.
You're gonna use that one?
Well, this has full like slow mo, dude.
Am I in your way or no?
Nah, you're gonna be good. Awesome.
Fire.
That sounded the way she pitched it. It sounded really good.
They're opening up another spot. She just told me that's going to be more of like a sports bar in the same plaza.
Oh, nice. Dude, 2 places in the same plaza. I'm always impressed at people that can run restaurants, man, because the rent's got to be insane. You can't even rent an apartment for less than like
Owning a gym now?
$2,500. Oh, yeah.
I'm always looking for the next spot that I can put the gym because growing, you know, I'm like, man, I don't want to move too far, so I'm always like, how much is rent here? How much is rent here? And these Publix plazas are crazy. We're in a warehouse area, and even there, I'm like, man, I feel like rent is crazy expensive.
Yeah.
My brother has a shop where he wraps cars. They're charging him like $12,000 a month.
I wonder how much square foot he has.
Why are you looking around?
Maybe 2 of these all the way down to the end.
Wow. So about 3,000 square feet almost maybe. These are about usually 1,200 to 1,500 square feet.
That's
Wow.
insane. It's just so much money.
Yeah, it's crazy. The commercial real estate is crazy. It's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
it's disgusting, dude. I went to UCF too, and my aspiration was to open a gym to be a strength and conditioning coach for fighters because it didn't really exist back then.
Right.
They were just like, do sprawls, do burpees. And when I saw like all the work, I'm like, dude, I'll never make any money.
Yeah.
I actually interviewed a guy up there as part of my like final project, and he had like the smallest little warehouse, and I'm like, dude, you don't make any money, do you? He's like, nah.
Man, so yeah, that was opening up the gym was a scary part, you know.
Especially, dude, there's so much competition now.
Yeah. There's so much competition. You're like, what's gonna set me apart from everyone else?
Right.
You know, and those are all things that I had to think about when I was opening up the gym. You know, and so pretty much what kind of brings us to like that kind of situation. I'm in the UFC now. I win my first fight by split decision. Super exciting fight. It was back and forth. I remember thinking in one part of the fight, shit, I'm gonna lose this fight. I remember being on the bottom and he's elbowing me, and I'm like, oh my god, I need to get up.
And was this Omer, whatever the
Alan
was?
Omer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's super strong. He was from Iran or Iraq, I believe.
Yeah.
And so we're in Abu Dhabi. Obviously, most of the fans are there for him. And so I remember somehow getting up, backpedaling, and just throwing across and then dropping him after he was just like ground and pounding me, getting on top. And so I just remember like, damn, this fight was crazy back and forth. So I'm like, I don't know who's going to win. They call my name. I'm like breaking out like, hell yeah. And then only win the UFC.
Dude, but
that.
you had some bad luck, man. Was your second fight the one in Orlando?
So my second fight was against Chaz Skelly in Colorado.
Oh,
And so in that fight, I win the first round, and second round comes along, and I feel myself just getting tired. I'm like, man, I'm getting tired. Don't get tired of me.
Colorado.
You know, and I thought I went 10 days earlier thinking maybe that was enough. Not enough. You know, I was able to do 3 rounds. I just did 5 rounds not too long ago pretty easily.
Right.
You know, I always prided myself in my cardio. And I'm like, man, I'm getting tired. And so he hits me the combo. I start falling back. I go to my hand and knee. I get kneed in the face. 1 second left in the second round. Referee calls it. I'm on a hand and a knee, literally on a hand and a knee. My coach tries to fight it. They never overturn it. I go back and I look at it, you know, and I'm like, yes, I was on my hand and knee, but he does rock me. You know, I'm like, I'm rocked. I shouldn't have been there, you know, in the first place. So at the end of the day, I'm like, it's something that happened, whatever. He got it. Third fight was against Cole Miller.
Dude, and that had to be awesome because that was in your hometown.
That's in Orlando. Man, I'm so excited about this fight.
And that was a stacked card.
It was a super stacked card. The person who fought before me was Nagano.
Yeah. Was he really?
Yes.
Dude, I was there. I forgot all about Nagano
He
being
fought
on
before
there.
me. I think, who else? I think, who was the 170?
Overeem versus
Overeem was
and then,
on it.
Cowboy
Usman was
versus
on,
Dos
like,
Anjos.
Ridiculous amount of people. It was such a Diaz brothers. Like,
And it was just a
crazy.
fight night.
It was an awesome fight
I
night.
was like, what the fuck?
So I was so happy to be on that. I remember they gave me Cole Miller, and I was training at ATT for a while, so I knew Cole.
Yeah.
And I had just left ATT, and I'm like, man, why are they giving me somebody from Florida?
Let me ask
to
you,
fight?
were there any, like, since you knew Cole, did you guys ever text leading up before the fight?
Right.
Like,
So
why would you take this fight? Or
That's
like,
exactly what happened. So I'm talking to Wagner at the time. You know, Wagner was my jiu-jitsu coach. And I'm like, man, I can't believe they gave me Cole Miller. I'm like, I'll fight anybody, but I would hate to have to fight someone who I trained with and from Florida. I'm like, there's 60 other 145ers on the roster at the time.
Yep.
I'm like, they can give me anybody. So I tell Cole, and I'm like, hey man, like you definitely have more pull than me. At the time, he had as many UFC fights as I had fights.
Yep.
And I'm like, you have more pull than me, man. Like, let's try to change it up. And he's like, whatever, a fight's a fight, man. Who cares?
Oh, he was already.
She's like, all right. So I'm like, all right, I guess we're doing it. And so whatever, fight happened. And I was training at MMA Masters now instead of ATT. I was training at ATT for a little bit.
Dude, how was MMA Masters back then?
I had to say, no, it was cool. Like, what really drew me to it at first was a big family atmosphere. Ricardo Lamas was training there, and Luis Palamino. So at my weight, Ricardo Lamas had just fought for the belt.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I get to train with this guy who just fought for the belt. So I got to train with Ricardo a lot. I trained with Palamino a lot. My friend Josh Saman was training there. He's the one who actually told me to come over. So good training. Like they gave you a lot of attention if you were in the UFC. So they were like one-on-ones with me. All of this,
Right.
awesome. I was like, awesome. They kind of changed up my style a little bit, tried to get me to strike a lot more. But I enjoyed all the attention that I was getting from it because at ATT, I was just
Yeah, you were another body.
wow, you're in the UFC, big whoop. We got 50
We all
other
are.
guys in the UFC, you know? So I enjoyed that. After I got out of the UFC, things changed. The attention wasn't really there. You know, I had all these aspirations to get back to the UFC, so I was like, oh man, this is different. I don't know. Atmosphere changed. People left. They stopped coming. Baboon wasn't there anymore. Lama stopped coming really a lot. So I was just like, I don't know if this is for me. I still kind of wanted to fight. And so I was just like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know where to go. And I just started training at Wagner's really and fought from there. Had my own boxing coach, just kind of was doing my own thing. Won the fight and then got hurt again.
Damn, man.
I got hurt. I had 2 ACL meniscus surgeries, like back to back pretty much, right? One after my last fight in the UFC and the fight after I got cut from the UFC. So it was hard to be like, am I going to keep going?
How's the cutting process? Like one day, like, hey, Jim, it's not working out, or it's just an email. Is that what it is?
Yeah, so it's just an email, really.
That's fucked up.
Just an email. So I think they emailed my coach, and they were like, hey, I remember I had to get surgery, and it was something like, hey, I know Jim has to get the knee surgery. Have a fight or two after that. You know, let's see how he is, and then we'll consider bringing him back. And I was like, damn. And what sucked was my last fight was against this guy Jason Knight, who he ended up, you know, being ranked eventually and everything. So he had a good run, but we got fight of the night. It was I lost by split decision, so it wasn't like he whooped me. And so I had a loss, I had a win, and I had a no contest with Cole Miller. Ended up poking him in the eye. And so I only had one win, one loss, and a no contest, and then a fight of the night loss, split decision. And they ended up cutting me. And I'm like, damn.
Which is crazy. You never got dominated, dude. It's not like you didn't.
Right. There was no fight that I got dominated. Exactly.
And there's definitely.
It's shocking.
The fights that I lost I felt pretty excited as well. So
like once they released it, did that mess with you a little bit?
Man, it was horrible. Like, it's something that you worked for so long. I think it took me like 8 years maybe to get into the UFC, almost like that. So I was like 27 at the time, and gosh, it's just everything you are dreaming about, everything you want, and then there's so much pressure with every fight, you know, because in their contract it says, hey, we can cut you whenever.
Ooh.
So you don't have to have all 4 fights. There's people who've been cut after 2.
Which is crazy. What kind of contract is that? Here's 4 fights, but we can cut you whenever. Like, so
Man, it's so stressful because also like you work so hard for this because this is going to be your life.
Right.
You know, like this is what everything you worked for. And now you get there and it's like, hey, if you lose this fight, you don't make half the money you were going to make also.
That's crazy because so let's say that no contest, you're sitting around for an email saying, shit, are they going to cut me after this?
Cut me? And in no contest, I don't make all my money also. I only get my show money.
Wow.
Which is horrible too, yeah. So you have that stress all the time. And then you are fighting now with this stress as well. So when Bare Knuckle came around, it was so much better because
the complete opposite.
Complete opposite. So my first fight, they offered a fight. I never even watched Bare Knuckle before. And
I mean, so you had to be in one of like the first ones, right?
I was in like the Bare Knuckle 4, maybe. I think there was a one where Paulie. Balzamani, the
oh
boxer.
My god! Yes.
Oh yeah! Holy shit!
So
that was that fight.
That was my first Bare Knuckle fight.
And you fought Leonard Garcia, dude, of all people.
No, my first
one wasn't Leonard?
Was against Alvin Brito. His name is.
Oh,
he ends up being a Bare Knuckle champ and everything as well later on. And I had fought him in MMA, and I knocked him out. So they offer him to me. I'm like, okay. I was confident. I was like, I beat him before. I can beat him again.
Yeah.
And so. At first, I was like, am I going to do this? I watched some of them, and I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy. I don't know. And I remember they gave me a one offer first, and I said, no way, I'm not doing that. And then they called me back, and when they called me back, David Feldman, who's the president, he ends up calling me back. And he's like, hey, I'm sorry, you know, that we gave you that offer. That's disrespectful. You know, someone who has, you know, as much experience as you have. How about this? And it was exactly what I would have made in the UFC if I won the fight. And I was like,
yes.
Yeah, of course. Heck yeah, I'll do it. One fight. I fought Bare Knuckle plenty of times, like I said, for free. You know, if anything happens, whatever, I lose, I still make that money. And I just opened up my gym. So I was like,
perfect timing.
Perfect timing. I need this cash. It will help with the gym. Awesome.
So how do you end up in Bare Knuckle? Through your management?
I don't know how they found me. They just called me. I had no manager at the time.
Okay.
Nothing. I got a phone call. And I'm like, hello? And they're like, hey, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, no, you know. So talked to my wife. I ended up doing the fight.
When she says, take the fight.
No, we're like thinking about it. We're like, oh, I don't know, like this is crazy. But I end up doing it, and I win like in 45 seconds, no damage, knock the guy out, like face first, becomes like a highlight knockout for them. I get knockout of the night on my first bare knuckle fight. So they gave me an extra $5,000 or something like that.
Fuck, I'll take it.
It wasn't UFC money yet, like in bonus wise, but they were paying out. So I was
It's
like,
something.
heck yeah. I just made like 20-something grand for one fight. That would have took me in the UFC a couple of fights to make that, which is crazy. And then so I fight again Leonard Garcia.
Which, dude, I mean, if you're not familiar with Leonard Garcia, all this dude did was fucking sloppy
Scrap.
brawls.
Man, so he had like 40-something fights.
Yep.
He never was knocked out before. So never finished. So I'm like, damn. He was supposed to fight. It was the main event. His opponent pulled out.
Oh, shit.
There was like a couple weeks only to train for this. They came with an offer, which was good, more than I was making in the UFC. But my wife was like, hey, they need you right now. This is the main event. They're scrambling. Ask for this. Ask for higher. And I was like, you know, just, I don't know. I didn't know
Just
myself.
politely,
Yeah. You know, so I come up with this whole long message, email, and I send it back just like, let's see. And they're like, okay.
That's a good wife, dude.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh my God, like this is awesome. I get to fight Leonard Garcia, who I watched fight so many times, like so many good fights.
Dude, I tell everyone, watch Leonard Garcia versus Korean Zombie, I think
Oh
it
my
was.
God, yeah, what a fight.
What the fuck?
And so I'm like, I go in there and I'm like, I need to finish this guy fast. So I go in there and I just blast him right away, just straight up the pipe. Boom, boom, when I start hitting him.
Was it the game plan or it changed once you got into the ring?
No, so we knew that he would throw like big, he throws big punches. So I was like, I need to get inside on him, right? Get inside, use clinch, try to be close, because if I get caught on one of those looping punches, that's nighttime.
That's it.
That's how he'd get most of the people. He'd just go into zombie mode and start swinging like wild. And so just blitzed him, end up dropping him like in the first like 10 seconds.
And was it give you a shot of confidence? You're like, oh, thank
Oh
God.
my
Like
God,
that.
I'm going crazy right now. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe this just happened. You know, like I said, I'm not a striker, you know.
You are now.
But I'm like, oh my God, what is happening?
I have these?
I'm like looking at my hands like, what? We go again. Oh, I drop him again. I drop him 4 times before the referee stops it, and I'm like on such a high now.
God,
Like,
so you
what
take-
just happened?
So you took less damage in bare knuckle over your MMA career, right?
Oh, of course, yeah. I went through my first few fights with no cuts, no nothing. The only thing that would be messed up are my hands. My
Yeah.
hands would like balloon up
Damn,
after
dude.
those fights. Yep. And so then I'm like, oh man, I just won 2 fights. And then, so I was never looking at it as like a new career. I'm just like, man, this is so much fun. So I start like playing a like character now where like I never did that in MMA. I was always polite, you know, and
Does that explain when you got in Palomino's face?
oh, this is all like
Jesus
just-
Christ!
This is all
Because that was
gimmick,
intense.
You know, I'm like, let's sell fights, let's make money, and I'm less like, I'm all about making money. I'm a prize fighter now.
Did he know that you were trying to sell a fight?
You know, like we talked about it briefly, you know, but obviously like emotions get in when shit gets said that, you know, people don't want to hear, you know? So, but I just started selling. I started calling myself the Bare Knuckle Beast, and
all right, that's where
you
it
know,
came from.
started, you know, making shirts and this, wearing a bandana all the time. Just like this is kind of selling this thing. Like what I found from Bare Knuckle, that it was a lot like boxing,
Yep.
you know, and in boxing they're so like glamorous and everything, and so
I feel like that's needed like in every sport.
yeah, so I just started becoming like that person who was just like, let me talk crap, let me make the weigh-ins crazy. I ended up fighting Julian Lane my 3rd fight, which
Let me bang, bro.
he's famous for let me bang. And so we're going back and forth, you know, at the weigh-ins. I like get in his face, like stick my tongue out. He pushes me like this crazy big one, you know, and end up knocking him out too, which is crazy with an uppercut. Just another crazy fight. And so now that I'm 3-0 in bare knuckle, I don't think anybody. I think maybe there's like one other person who has that much. I'm like, I want a belt. I'm like, make me a belt. There was no belt for my weight class at the time. And so I started calling for this belt. They're trying to figure out what to do. And they make a tournament. And I fight this guy, Caleb Harris, who my toughest fight in bare knuckle. Like, I'd rather have gotten knocked out right away than have to fight all 5 rounds like I did.
Oh, yeah, it's got to suck.
So we fought all 5 rounds. Pretty much like fuck him up for 4 out of the 5 rounds. One of the rounds, I'll give it to him. But 4 out of the 5 rounds, I beat the shot at him. I hit him over 1,000 punches. I counted it over 1,000 punches.
Dude, your fucking fist must have been crying.
My hands were destroyed.
Yeah, broken. How many broken?
I never broke my hand.
What?
Never broke my hand. But this is not an exaggeration. My knuckles were this fat over. So they put like a tape on your hand. So this part was still like this.
Yeah.
And then this part was swollen up to like right here. After that fight.
So now when you're landing these punches, right? When you're hitting them with these punches, your hands just hurts with every shot.
So after the third round,
or the
fight,
adrenaline.
After the third round in that fight, I was in my corner like, man, I don't want to fight anymore. Like my hands are so bad, and they built up in all the fights. I remember in every bare knuckle fight, I was hurting my hands. Maybe I wasn't conditioning them right. To be honest, I was barely training for bare knuckle. I was doing 2 pad sessions a week with my coach, Kevin Gleason.
How the hell do you train your knuckles?
The old school karate shit on the wood.
On the rice bag?
Yeah, they're doing all these crazy things. I wasn't doing that. I was teaching at my gym. I was building my gym up.
Fingering a bowling ball.
Which makes it even crazier.
Yeah, I was building my gym up. I would go 2 times a week to my boxing coach. We hit pads.
Were you training with the big gloves when you went for bare knuckle, or?
Yeah, I would train with big gloves most of the time.
Because that's got to like totally not apply.
Sometimes I put MMA gloves on to mess around, but I would try to do pads without the gloves and my hands would hurt. And I'm like, nah, forget it. I'm not doing that. And it was just more like fun. So I'm like just having a fun ass time now. And they finally give me the title shot against Palamino. And so this is crazy because I trained with him for like 2 years.
And Masters, correct?
Yeah. And so I'm like, I knew how hard he hits. I knew how good he was. Honestly, maybe like deep down inside, like I knew that he was a better striker than me, you know? And I was trying to get in his head and all this stuff. But fight comes along and I don't change anything. I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing the same thing I've been doing. It's been working. You know? So for the title fight, we traded 2 times a week. You know, we kept saying like, oh, our game plan is just we got good recovery. Good recovery. We have 3 days to recover, 2 days of working out. And I come at him, blast him, but he's such a good backward striker that he just hit me with every hit perfectly, you know, and then dropped me. I don't even remember getting back up and refighting. I thought I just got dropped 1 time.
Oh, shit.
But I got dropped. I come back, fought some more, and then got dropped again, I think, and then that's when they stopped it.
Well, it was an overhand right. The last shot that took you.
It maybe.
It's crazy because I watched the fight numerous times and I'm thinking, I mean, I know it hurts. It can't hurt that much.
Yeah, so I would say like it's weird. The punches don't hurt. He just definitely
the
landed
accumulation
in the right spots too. That definitely rocked me. You know, as I'm coming forward, he's hitting me, so I'm kind of a little bit off balance, I'm sure, and just landed just perfect shots. Like literally every punch he hit me with cut me also. So I had like, I think he hit me like 5 or 6 times and I had cut right here, cut right here, cut right here. And after that, I remember I was walking around with a fake belt. Oh my God, I went as cringe as you can get. I was like, I'm the real champion, blah, blah, blah. And after the fight, I gave him that fake belt. I'm like, man, you're the real champ, you know? And I flirted with coming back a little bit, but never really decided to do it.
All right, so how do you feel now that Conor is part owner of this? Watch Conor make a fight finally with you guys.
Crazy, man.
Well, he's part owner. He's not fighting in it.
Yeah,
He's still got to come back to the UFC.
As an owner, maybe he'll throw with the idea. Maybe me and Jim settle some business.
Oh man,
it won't happen.
If everyone remembers me, that's funny.
Yeah,
but
dude, there was a time though. Like I want to say, like,
can you hit me with another pizza?
Yeah, you want another one?
Yeah, it's really good.
But there was a moment there where I think if you beat Cole Miller, you might have been able to line something up. Because I think that was like right before he fought Mendez or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Would have been awesome, but I think like
But yeah,
It
now
just-
it would
The
be so
stars just
random.
didn't align, yeah.
Did they offer you another fight in bare knuckle?
They had to call back, right? Well, I
Man.
mean, was that the last fight in your
Here's the only thing I
contract?
didn't really like about bare knuckle. After that loss, they didn't contact me for like a long ass time. It's like, and you'll see it. Think about how many guys have gone into bare knuckle that were from the UFC or they did this, and they only once they lost, you don't see them again.
Yeah.
So they just kind of bring them in, they build them up a little bit, and then once they lose, they kind of it's like, you know. And so eventually, like, we come up with something. And this is like a while later, like almost like 2 years later.
Oh shit.
And they wanted me to fight this guy from England in New York, and ended up getting hurt. First time I ever pulled out of a fight for them. I fought for them on short notice multiple times, and I pulled out of one fight, and they never want to talk to me again.
You know what's crazy? Thiago was saying that, the same thing about the way they
Oh yeah,
treat,
because he hurt his hand.
the way they treat their fighters.
Yeah.
Very upsetting.
Yeah, you know, it's like, as long as you're fighting and making money for them, awesome. And then it's just like, so this kind of like ghosted me. Like, I'm like, man, I'd want to get back in there and do it again. It took a while, but I'm like, I want to go do it again. And then guess it didn't work out. I remember I took an MMA fight again, one more MMA fight. I took it. It was a 3 fights in one night event. That's the only thing that drew me to it.
You had to fight 3 times?
I wanted to. I didn't get the chance to.
I didn't think that was even like sanctioned anymore.
No, yeah, you can still do it. So the way that they did it was, the first fight was only 1 round. You can only do a certain amount of rounds in Florida or something
Okay,
like that.
nice.
Then the second fight was 1 round, and the third fight, if you made it to the finals, was 3 rounds. In the first round, this was my first MMA fight in like 3 years or something like that. And in the first fight, I would say like he just pushed me against the cage more, you know, and so he won that 1 round fight. And so I didn't get to move on to the next round. So I wish I had more rounds to like get that ring rust off, I guess, to continue. But after that, I was just like,
Fuck this. I'm done.
yeah, I'm done, you know. And so just really got into the jiu-jitsu scene and just started competing in jiu-jitsu super fights and a lot of times at IBJJF, and
Dude, that's
just
bumping.
really enjoyed it.
It's bumping now though. You got the fight to wins and the who's number 1 and all that stuff now, where they're paying jiu-jitsu guys. Like, it's come a long way, man.
Yeah, to me it became more of just like, man, my whole career was so, man, I had to win, I had to do this, you know, I'm trying to make this into my lifestyle, into my living, so I can provide for my family, I give my family this better life and stuff. And after the fighting, I was like going into jiu-jitsu, and I'm like, well, I would still have that same feeling for some reason, and I had to be like, wait a second, who the hell cares if I win or lose this jiu-jitsu fight? You know, I'm like, it just used to be fun. And then I noticed, I'm like, man, I'm winning these over and over and over again now because I'm just having a good time. Like, it means nothing to me if I win or lose this jiu-jitsu fight. I need to just do it again for the love of it. And then I'm back to like when I first started jiu-jitsu, when I loved it and I was competing for love and I didn't care nothing about it, just for the competition. That's where I'm back to now. I compete because I
enjoy it.
I don't care if I compete for free. I love this, and I just want to get on the mat and test myself against people.
Dude, it's really wild too, because like during this time and like being our age, even like, dude, the Masters division maybe like 10 years ago was kind of a joke.
Right.
But right now it might be the scariest division.
There's so many former world champions and that.
Yeah, dude,
stuff.
if you're going to go in there and fight Mighty Mouse.
Oh, of course,
like, what
yeah.
the fuck?
The way I look at it is I'll do a super fight against anyone.
Yep.
You know, I don't care what age you are. I can do 10 minutes. I can do maybe 20 minutes even of one fight. But the moment, like in adult worlds,
where you gotta do like 10
you gotta
fights?
have like, 7 to 8 fights, you know, 10-minute fights if you don't submit them all.
But you just
like,
said you're doing Abu Dhabi, so.
I'm like, we'll see. I'm gonna test myself for that. I've been working out, strength conditioning a lot now.
I'm sure
just
you'll be
kind of
good,
pushing
man.
myself a lot more, just to see how I do.
Hey, will you if you could rearrange your history, will you have started at bare knuckle and then done MMA?
I wouldn't. No, probably not.
Just
I
the
don't
way
know.
it went?
Probably MMA. I mean, I don't know. It depends. I guess if Bare Knuckle was like paying really good, same thing back then. And I think a lot of guys now are doing that. You'll see because Bare Knuckle, they'll pay you like $1,000 or something for your first fight. It's crazy how much some of these guys are getting paid. By the way,
They're paying insane money. They paid Paige Van Zandt like $400,000.
if you have a name.
Right, but even so, she wasn't getting $400,000 in the UFC.
No. If you don't, so let's say like you're like, I want to start training, I want to fight. You got your first Bare Knuckle fight. You're getting paid like $1,000
Oh my God.
to fight Bare Knuckle the same. Like I remember when I fought one of these guys, I was getting paid. I don't care, I'll say it too, right? I got paid like $40,000, and he only got paid $5,000 to fight.
Oh man,
Bro,
I beat the shit out of him.
That's an entire this is the hospital bill's gonna be way more than that.
Yeah.
I'd let you beat my ass for $5,000.
Right, but like they come from MMA, where in MMA they were only making, they have to have a lot of fights. Like I said, I was the champion.
I wonder,
Making $2,500.
Jim, I wonder if like those guys that get paid a lot less, right? Once they get touched with a hard hit, they just like fuck it. Let me just stay down. Like
Nah, you're more of a dog then.
that's true. You're gonna want to get
I
up.
don't know. Some people
yeah.
they believe. Everyone has that that dream that hey, if I beat this guy, I'm gonna be the champion. I can make a lot more money. And those are the people they want in Bare Knuckle. The ones that are like, man, I need to do this so that I can have a better life.
Yeah.
Those are the best type of people because they're gonna stay in there. They're gonna put it all on the line to try to win that fight.
Especially if you got nothing else.
I would say a lot of the guys now though that are coming with a big name, they're coming in. They're like, we're gonna give you hundreds of thousands of dollars for this fight, and they're like, they get touched once, and they're like, oh, forget this. I'm gonna get paid anyways.
Right.
Because they pay you win or lose.
You saw the fight with Lorenzo Hunt and
Oh my God!
what's
Broke his arm.
I did not see that happening.
Broke his. I mean,
Yeah,
the
I
fight
don't even-
definitely could have kept going. Too. He wasn't knocked out. He just fell, and the way he fell,
All he does is
crazy. Not even. I probably would have been crying. I don't know. I've never broken the bone, but I'm just like freaking out, crying.
You see so many
I don't
different
know.
reactions to it, man.
Yeah.
Some people like just chill, and other people they do that.
Some people chill. They're like, I don't know. Maybe.
I feel like in
this-
MMA, a lot of the time you see an arm get broken or something, and guys are just like, oh shit.
fucking
You know what it is that your adrenaline is just so high that you're just like, oh damn. And it's like once you're going to the hospital, you're like, oh shit, my arm's broken.
The way Mir broke Nogueira's arm.
Oh
When
my
I saw that, and Nogueira was like,
Well, even Tim Sylvia, man. Tim Sylvia went
Yes.
on to like win the fight or some shit, right?
"Oh, the
If I'm
broken
not
arm."
mistaken. That was crazy.
He's just like, looking at an ingrown nail. I'm out. I had another question.
Man.
All right, these are the fun
These are the
question.
crazy ones.
nice,
Watch
yes.
This is a fun question. Considering you picked a really good place to eat, it was really tasty.
Oh, thank you.
What your last meal on Earth? What would it be before you go?
So, man, I've been really loving lamb for some reason, like lamb chops, right? So like this some nice grilled, like a full rack of lamb chops would be amazing. Like I'm like sucking the bones on these. I love it for some reason.
Damn, dude. I don't think I've ever had lamb.
You never
If
had
you
lamb?
haven't,
I've had
man,
alpaca, but I haven't had
especially
lamb.
like
You had
lamb,
alpaca?
lamb chops, like amazing. It's amazing.
All right, so we went to Longhorn. I know.
Right. Longhorn has a good lamb chops.
Yes, I had no idea.
I just went to Longhorn for the first time, I
In, like,
think, or
15
something
years?
like that, and it was delicious.
They took me there for my birthday, and I was like, Longhorn sucks. I don't want to be here. And then the girl, she was like, get the lamb chops. They're really good. They were delicious.
That's exactly what she told me. She's like, we just brought it back, And I'm like, oh, well, if you just brought it back, it must be good. And it was good.
It was
delicious.
incredible. And my final question is, if you could book any fight, whether it's UFC or bare knuckle, with whoever you want to pick, who would it be and why?
So,
And whatever amount of money you wish.
right, yeah. Man, I'll probably, like, I tell people, like, I'd do this fight really for not too much money just to get it. So my last fight in the UFC, like I said, it was against Jason Knight. He ends up fighting Bare Knuckle too and everything, and I wanted that fight back because when I watched the fight, I'm like, man, it is a close fight, you know? And to me, if you submit me or if you knock me out, man, you beat me.
That's the end
of
the fight.
But you know, like maybe I can say like I got caught, whatever. But I hate that in the 3 rounds that he was the better fighter that round. So I'm like, man, I know that I can beat you. I need to make some changes. I want to push that. So like for me, it's just like, man, he actually beat me in 3 rounds in a decision. So I hated that. I never lost in a decision before. And I'm like, man, this guy beat me.
Or you got to take me out. And you
David Feldman, you heard it here.
Man, I've tried and tried and tried. Him and I though are cool now. Like we had a lot of beef going back and forth for a little bit, but in Bare Knuckle we became super cool. And if we do
so you
fight,
guys cross paths, you just never able to set up a fight?
We were never able to set it up.
Damn.
We did this huge like April Fool's joke in the Bare Knuckle community where we said we were going to fight each other.
Oh,
and
man.
It got real big, but then it was never happened. And if we did fight now, it'd be more of just like, hey, like let's just see what happens, you know? He almost got back into the UFC again. He was on the last Ultimate Fighter. Like they had a few guys that were the comebacks or something.
Yeah, they did have that. Well, Jim, amazing career, man. It was fun to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time. You were definitely one of the more busy guys we were trying to get a hold of.
No, but yeah, like I said, I just wanted, like, I'm just busy doing everything, man. I want to do all kind of combat sports.
Yep.
You know, I've done combat jiu-jitsu, bare knuckle, regular jiu-jitsu, wrestling, MMA. You know, I've done tag team jiu-jitsu. You know, so like whatever it is that has to do with combat sports, you know, I'm jumping into it. So I'm just constantly busy. My fighters, I have a lot of fighters now for my gym. So I'm just like, I see a message and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get back to this. You know, I'm going to leave it open even so I can see it. And I'm like, damn, I didn't get back to it.
Yeah, no worries, dude. No worries. Any fighters you want to plug? You want to plug your school?
Oh, yeah. So my school is not too far from this place right now, Coley's, again, which is amazing pizzeria. We're out in West Pembroke Pines next to West Broward High School, Alers Martial Arts. We're just a fight school, you know, where you can learn how to kickbox, you can learn how to do jiu-jitsu, you can learn how to do MMA, but it's for everybody. We have all walks of life. We have guys who want to fight, and then we have people who are just like, hey, I just want to do this for fun, but I want to train the way these fighters do.
Yeah.
You know, so there's guys who are just like, they would never fight, but they're doing the MMA, they're there with the guys, you know, and it's just that good vibe and good environment. You know, I tell my fighters, hey, like, work with these guys, like, push them, you know, like, remember your first day, remember this, like, we're not ever trying to kill each other at my gym. So I have a lot of good guys, too many to name, I would say, definitely too many to name. But they're all going to be fighting in Combat Night, the next Combat Night on June 29th down here in South Florida. Always repping Combat Night. And so if you guys are in town, you guys definitely got to come.
You'll be in the corner?
Come check them out. I'll be in the corner, definitely.
Yeah, we'll swing through.
Those are amazing live fights. You got to come check those out.
All right, Jim. Well, again, thank you so much, man. Hopefully you enjoyed it. We definitely did.
Definitely, man.
And that's
He
it.
only got like 2 bites in.
Yeah.
I know,